let's go. Heidi Love in the house, dropping knowledge and facts, uncovering the truth, no need for acting lax. She ain't afraid to speak her mind, breaking through the lies, rising up with love, taking us to new highs. We're living in a world full of secrets and deceit, but Heidi's here to expose, bringing truth to the beast. She's got a message, spreading it far and wide, from addiction to hope. She's on the other side. Ooh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Rise with me, Heidi Love. And today I have back a reoccurring guest, Ed Mabrie. He actually knocked it out of the park. You guys absolutely loved him. I got a ton of messages about Ed and how much they enjoyed your show. So I am so glad you're here with me for my Christmas episode. Who better to come talk to Jesus about, right?
Yeah, thank you for having me back. I appreciate it. I love being on the show, and yeah, I'm happy to be back and talk
Well,
about a little bit of Christmas mythology.
that's right. And also, you guys, if you didn't see his episodes on faithbyreason.net or on YouTube, faithbyreason.net on there as well, or just Faith by Reason, probably.
It's actually on YouTube. I think it's at Faith by Reason 883.
Okay.
Don't ask me why they assigned that.
Sure.
But
No,
if
I
you do a
got
search
you.
for Faith by Reason, I think you'll find me there. There's another Faith by Reason which is completely different than mine, so you'll notice a difference.
Okay, awesome. Well, I will tell you guys, I just was telling Ed, I watched all of them that were on Nephilim Death Squad. I'm going to go back and rewatch the unabridged version because why not? And I will tell you guys, they're amazing. So you're missing out. Go check them out. Check Ed out. He's awesome. He's got a really good handle on this biblical understanding. And of course, none of us were there when it was written, but I think he's doing a pretty great job. So that's my thought.
We do what we can. We work with the literature that we've been given. There's been a lot of noise in this, I guess you can call it the secular world, recently, and we're going to get to that too in this episode, because I have a couple of things I want to talk about as far as the myths about Christmas and what's going on there. But there are a lot of people saying, well, the Bible is not reliable. It's older text, blah blah blah. And I'm thinking, well, you can say that about any old text, but they don't give the same level of scrutiny to the Bible as they did, the works of Homer, the Iliad, the Gallic Wars by Caesar, all these different things. We all study them in school. No one questions their validity. But when it comes to the Bible, we can't trust it because it's old. Well,
Right.
everything's going to be old eventually. I mean, I don't think we're going to be around. I don't think the Earth's going to be around that much longer. But let's say 500 years from now, this podcast is going to be old. And does that mean
Yep.
it's unreliable? No, we have scholarship. We have dating. We have ways of verifying the validity. And with the Bible, is verifiable in not only with literature and scholarship and history, but also its supernaturalness is verifiable by the fact that it does one thing that no other book has ever done, and that is predict the future with 100% accuracy.
Awesome. And
And
they're
we're
so
going
quick.
down a rabbit trail,
Yeah.
but that's just my anyway.
Yeah, they're so quick to accept the emerald tablets of Thoth, but there's absolutely zero
They don't exist.
substantiation for that. Yeah, so I'm not knocking on anybody that wants to read things. Reading is good no matter what you want to do, but you
Yeah.
have to remember, like, I think there's a lot more historical evidence in the Bible than that.
Yeah, I agree.
So we're going to talk about Christmas today.
Christmas, yes.
And I'm so excited to get into this. I even wore my red sweater for you.
Well, I'm wearing one of my Christmas sweaters. So we got red and green going on here.
Oh, yeah. So what do we want to find out
Well,
about Christmas?
Yeah, so I want to just go over some of the mythology of Christmas, what's right, what's not right, and because it's obviously a traditional holiday that's celebrated around the world. You don't have to be a Christian apparently to celebrate it. I would say most people just look at it as a time for family and gathering and giving gifts. But I mean, the term is there, Christmas, Christ Mass, a Mass for Christ. So whether or not people acknowledge the aspect of Jesus, you can't get away from it. But
Right.
there's so much that's misunderstood and that's wrong about I would say wrong. Maybe I don't want to be too harsh, but there's so much mythology and paganism and all these things wrapped into this holiday that I think it's just important that we understand what's right, what's not right, what we should and should be doing, and also how seriously should we take certain things that we've learned about Christmas. So let's start with the most obvious one. Was Jesus born on December 25th? And the answer is no. He was not born. I can't say definitively, but I think it's highly, highly, highly unlikely that he was born on December 25th for several practical reasons. When you look at the story, the narrative in the Gospels, especially in Matthew, well, Matthew and Luke are the only ones to have like the nativity narrative. Mark and John don't. But the when it's presented in a way that would make it really, really unlikely that's December 25th. First of all, the reason that Mary and Joseph, when Mary was roughly 9 months pregnant, why did they travel to Jerusalem, to Bethlehem? Well, because the Caesar at the time, Augustus, had decided that the entire world should, the Roman world should be taxed and with a census. So everyone had to go to their town of birth. And so Joseph was born in he was born in actually was born in Jerusalem, but Bethlehem was the closest they could get. So they had to travel by law. So Augustus Caesar was not a stupid human being. He was actually very smart. I mean, he wasn't a nice guy, but he was very intelligent. He would not have people travel in the middle of winter. It's
Right.
cold, it's difficult. And also, so it would not have been during winter. It would have been probably during spring or summer.
Well, and he's
Right.
trying to get taxes from these people, and
Right.
you
He's
don't
trying
want
to,
them dropping dead on the way.
Mhm.
I mean, let's be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
So the best time to travel would have been between spring and the end of summer. Another reason that we know that it could not have been December 25th is because if you've ever been to Israel during that time, it gets below freezing. There are areas, the roads are impassable because there could be snow drifts there. It
Oh,
actually
wow.
gets really, really cold there. So again, so remember, Jesus was born in a barn, in a manger. He would have frozen to death if
Mm.
it was in late December.
Oh,
There,
wow.
another reason we know that it wasn't in December, late December, and a reason to believe that it was actually probably late summer or early fall was because when Jesus was born, remember there were shepherds in the field. Well, generally you don't want sheep out at night if you're a shepherd because they're predatory animals out there. You know, they're wolves and lions who at night you can't see them at night. Normally the sheep would be in a barn. So why would they be out at night? Well, the only reason they would be out at night, the only practical reason is because it was a time of year when the shepherds were shearing the wool off the sheep to take it to market, and they wanted to do it as quickly as possible. So they would take shifts and they would shear the sheep all day and all night. So that's the
Mm.
only reason why they'd be out in the field at night is because it was that time of year. What
And the
changed?
light would be longer, right? The
Right.
light.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're talking late summer. That's when it
Okay.
would make sense. And there's actually some people have done calculations, and interestingly, I can't verify this, but some people like the late Michael Heiser, who's one of my mentors, he says that according to his research, Jesus was actually born on September 11th.
I heard that. Yes, I love
Yeah.
Michael Heiser's work. And I just thought, when I heard that, I thought, are you serious? And that's why we have so many calamities and different weird
Well,
things
yeah.
on that day. Yeah.
Understand the bad guys take dates very, very seriously.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
September
they
11th
do.
is a big date for them. January 6th is a big date for them. March
Better
13th,
believe.
March 13th and March 23rd are big. There are a lot of them. I'm not going to get into all the occult dates, but things tend to happen on these certain dates.
Yes, I totally agree.
So why don't we know the date? Why doesn't the Bible make a big deal out of it? Well, because we were never told to celebrate his birth.
Right.
Now, again, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging the birth of Jesus. Obviously, it's obviously it's a pinnacle moment in Christianity, but that was not his focus. His purpose wasn't to be born. His purpose was to die for our sins. So the only dates that we are supposed to observe are his crucifixion and resurrection. He was
Hmm.
crucified on Passover. So the Jewish feasts mirror that. He was crucified on Passover. He was buried on the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and he rose again on the Feast of First Fruits. So those dates were put there in advance, in the Levitical law of 1500 years earlier for those reasons. And we're supposed to celebrate those because our redemption is important.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
they changed
yeah,
him when the Catholic Church came in, right?
that's where we get into next. Yeah, thank you for that segue. Because so it begs the
Yes.
question, if Jesus was not born on December 25th, why do we celebrate? Or why are we told to celebrate on December 25th? Well, because it gets into Catholicism, Christ's Mass, a Mass for Christ. And it started in about the fourth century AD, when at this point Christians were being persecuted. Christianity was illegal. The Roman Empire was persecuting Christians, drove them underground. They lived in the catacombs, but they still flourished because Christians, we tend to flourish under when things get bad because we're relying only on God. But at this point, the Roman Empire has split into the eastern and western portions, and the western portion was, excuse me, governed by Caesar by the name of Constantine. He was the emperor. Constantine was fighting to reunite the empire. There was a famous battle called the Battle of Milvian Bridge, the climactic battle between the East and the West. And Constantine claims that the night before that battle, he saw a vision of the cross in the sky, and he heard the words, "In this sign, conquer." He went out the next day, and they won the battle. And Constantine took that as a sign from God that God was on his side, and so he, at least nominally, converted to Christianity. He legalized Christianity. He favored Christians at court. He started building churches, and importantly, he named himself the head of the Christian church. He called himself Pontifex Maximus, which is the same title that the popes have to this day. Although I heard recently that Pope Francis is rejecting the title for
Of
certain.
course he is.
But
He's a very questionable pope. I mean, the whole religion is, I'm not gonna demean anyone's religion.
Mhm,
All religion is corrupt, in my
yep,
opinion.
mhm.
And so that one is just a special form of paganistic worship, just like the Mormons. So yeah.
Well, religion is man-made. Religion are the
Yes.
things that human beings put on top of the revealed word of God, which is a point of pride. You're basically
Yes.
trying to improve on God. So religious things like lighting candle, rubbing beads, saying certain types of prayers, doing all these rituals that God never intended for us to do. Salvation is by accepting Jesus alone. It's very clear in the Bible.
Absolutely.
Confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus, believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, and you shall be saved. Period. You don't
Yes.
have to
When
do a
you
bunch of other stuff.
Were you ever, I know you went to church and how you were raised up, but were you ever religious in your heart? Did you ever have that? Like,
Um, the way I was raised, I did certain things. I mean, nothing, because I wasn't raised in the
right,
Catholic Church. I was
right,
raised in Protestantism, but there were certain things that we were supposed to do, like you had to dress up to go to church. I mean, it's not major, nothing blasphemous
right,
there, but there were little things we were just told to do that we had that there's certain rituals, and in my mind, I was like, well, why do we have to do
right.
this?
Yes, I was always a little questioner. And
Yeah.
then on top of the little questionings,
Mhm.
when it got real weird for me with the Mormon stuff, because it gets real weird,
Mhm.
like the Catholic stuff sometimes gets weird. But I don't think I loved God like I love God now. And I
Mhm.
don't think I understood anything. I don't.
Yeah,
So I got
I
out.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the church was a bunch of
Um,
rules, and it didn't make sense, but I did them because, well, I thought that's what God wanted. So we didn't want to make
yeah.
God upset. But then as I, got older and studied more, and I realized that God wants a relationship with us. He doesn't
Yes.
want to be, a teacher with a bunch of rules and ready to wrap you across the knuckles with a ruler if you don't do it. That's not who God is, but that's how humans in religion portrays him, as this angry guy on a cloud who can't wait to bop us over the head anytime we do anything wrong. And
Exactly.
it took a long time for me to get out of that mindset because I had that, and I think many people have that same idea that God is harsh and cruel and doesn't want you to have any fun, and yeah, and he sends you to hell, which is not true at all. No one's in hell because God sent them there. Everyone who ends up separated from God, actually on the last episode I was on with Nephilim Death Squad, we were going over hell, and that was one of the things. That's why it's kind of fresh on my mind,
Oh.
is that God does not send you to hell. God invites you to heaven. Hell is separation, it's eternal separation from God, and that's your choice. You can choose to
Hmm.
reject the invitation. That's why anyone ends up in separation from God. But again, let's getting back to Constantine.
Yes.
I'll keep going on rabbit trails forever.
I
But
I like it. That's fine.
so Constantine legalized Christianity and made himself Pontifex Maximus. And there's an idea out there that he made Christianity the official religion of Rome. That's not true. Actually, his third successor, a man named Theodosius, did that. He he made Christianity the official religion of Rome and subsequently outlawed all the other religions. Because at the time, the Romans would you were allowed to have whatever religion you wanted when the Romans conquered you, as long as you added the Caesar to your pantheon of gods. So that was fine with the pagans. They say, sure, we have all these gods. We'll just we'll throw you in there. Christianity is different. That's why they were persecuted, because they would not worship Caesar. So when Theodosius makes Christianity the official religion of Rome, well, by default, all these other gods can't be God. Christianity is monotheistic. So now Yeah, and he basically said you have to be Christian under punishment of death. So now you have all of these churches, these cathedrals, filled with unrepentant pagans who weren't there because they really believed. They were there because they didn't want to die.
Right.
Unlike the Christians who would rather be persecuted than deny their faith, the pagans were like, yeah, well, we're not that serious about it, but they were still
Right.
pagans, and there was a ruckus being caused there. They were unruly. They didn't want to accept Jesus. So the idea came to the Christian leadership, like, look, in order to pacify these pagans, let's just merge things a bit. Why don't we celebrate some of their festivities and put Christian monikers on them, and so that they'll be more comfortable and they'll be more willing to listen, hear the message of Jesus, and they'll fully convert. And once they fully convert, then we can just phase all the paganism out. Well, that never works. There's no compromise between good and evil. I always give the analogy: if you have a clean glass of water and you put a drop of poison in it, well, it's not just water that's kind of bad. No, it's just poison that kills you a little more slowly. You compromise good with evil, evil always wins.
Yep.
And that's what
Yep.
happened. So what does it have to do with Christmas? Well, December 25th, and by the way, there's an alternate opinion about this, which I'll give in a moment. But for my studies, December 25th, late December period, which we're coming up to right now, there was a celebration called Saturnalia. Saturn was a very important planet in paganism. It was considered at the time the furthest from the sun. So the black cube that you see in various religions, including Islam, if you go to Mecca, they circle around this black cube that I think was like a meteorite or something. That's that's considered Saturn. Saturn was the Greek god Kronos, the god of time, and so Saturnalia was a pagan celebration that happened towards the end of the year, and a lot of the aspects of Saturnalia were incorporated into the celebration of Christmas. But again, why December 25th? Well, December 25th was also considered the birthday of Sol Invictus, the conquering sun god. Sol Invictus was supposedly born on December 25th. How does that work? Well, he was a sun god. So the sun is at its lowest point in the sky astronomically around December 21st. Then it stays low for 3 days and begins to rise again on December 25th, and it gets higher and higher until you get to the I think the vernal equinox in at the start of summer. That's when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. I think it's the vernal equinox, or is it the summer solstice? Forgive me for not knowing.
Right.
You
Right.
you might know
No,
better than me.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah.
Okay. So he was considered the sun god. Hey, the sun is at its lowest point, so the sun is dead. Then it's dead for 3 days, and it rises again. Oh, that sounds like Jesus. So
Yes.
let's just call this the birth of Jesus. And the pagans could celebrate that at the same way they celebrated Sol Invictus.
Mhm.
And so that's how it came to be that Christmas, that the birth of Jesus became December 25th. Now, as I said, there's an alternate view that I've been hearing recently from a couple of people I respect. I saw an old video with Michael Heiser who said this, as well as Wes Huff, who's gotten famous recently for his debate with Billy Carson, who is
Yes. That.
a fraud and a con man. Who I knew he was a fraud and a con man before this, because, and we're going to talk about him a little later.
You actually said that on my last show before the
Did I?
debate.
Okay, yeah, I'm
Yes, you
not a fan of
did.
this guy.
It
But I
was
said it
actually
before.
hilarious. Yeah, that this debate happened.
Yeah, that debate, he got destroyed, which
Oh.
he has no credibility. I'm just amazed that he was on all these shows.
He's suing now. Did you hear this?
Oh yeah, he's suing, but the problem is the guy who he debated, Wes Hub, is Canadian, and you can't sue him in an American court. And even if he didn't do anything wrong. All he did
No.
was just show Billy that he is not smart, that he's a fraud. Anyway, we'll get to him.
So funny.
Yeah, it was quite funny, especially his reactions, and he does some 3 hour long rant where he is just he was broken by this that happened to him.
That was so funny.
So all this pagan mythology became a part of Christianity. But the alternate theory that Wes and Heiser had, it was that Christians were celebrating the birth of Jesus on December 25th before Catholicism. It's interesting. I have some problems with it because it doesn't really fit. But the reason that they say that they celebrate the birth of Jesus on December 25th is that there's the idea that a prophet dies on the same day he was born. That's said with Isaiah, I think not with Isaiah, with Elijah, with Enoch, with Moses, that they died on the same day that they were born. So Jesus died on Passover, and they say, well, then he must have been conceived in winter, and they say they feel he was conceived on December 25th. So that doesn't line up for a couple of reasons. One, if you're celebrating his birth and if you do believe he was born on the day he died, then you should be celebrating his birthday in spring, during the Passover.
Right.
Yet we don't. And also, even if you try to say, well, his conception, well, celebrating someone's conception isn't the same as celebrating their birthday. And conception is 9 months. Well, if you go to spring of the Passover time, which is usually going to be either April or March or April, if you go back 9 months, well, you're still not hitting December 25th. So I'm not saying
And
that
it's not even viable at that point.
right. No, exactly. So is it possible that some Christians were celebrating it on December 25th? I guess I can't deny that, but the reasoning doesn't work. The dates don't work. So I just want to put it out there, because two people who I respect have been putting that out there. And if you go to YouTube and you can search their videos, and they will give you that reasoning. So I want to make it a part of this presentation, but I see some serious problems with it. It just doesn't make sense for the reasons that are being given. Yeah. Anyway, obviously there's a lot of paganism involved in it. One is the Christmas tree itself. We have one. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I have one up too, but I don't take it seriously. It's mostly for the kids. But if you look in the book of Jeremiah, a very famous passage there that talks about a Christmas tree and how it's an idol. They say you go out, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the verse in front of me, but you go out, you chop down a tree, you fasten it, and you deck it with gold and silver, and you worship it. Well, sounds a lot like a Christmas tree. Isn't that what we do? We cut down, we have a tree cut down, or in our case, an artificial tree. We deck it with gold and silver. We put presents under it. We're technically bowing down to get things from under the tree. It's paganism. Does that mean you're worshiping the devil with a Christmas tree? No, but we need to be aware of the roots of the paganistic roots of it. And then you have things like the Yule log. So this is actually a part of the whole Christmas tree tradition. Yule is the Chaldean word for child. And what would they do? They would take this Yule log, they would burn it in the fire, and then they let the ashes sit for 3 days. Then they would replace it with an evergreen tree. This is a Chaldean tradition that dates all the way back to Nimrod and Semiramis and Tammuz. Another name for Tammuz is Hermes. So this goes back all the way back to ancient Babylonian paganism. But there are many traditions here in America and in Europe where people burn the Yule log. Mistletoe and the wreath. Those are also paganistic from Northern Europe. So, and you can go, I mean, Santa Claus. Yes, I know they say that it's the Saint Nicholas and who is a Catholic saint, and that's fine. But there's also other names for him that there is an actual entity that would go from house to house and punish those who were bad and reward those who were good. Like Santa Claus. So there's just I mean, you name it. The candy cane has pagan roots to it. All of these different things have paganistic roots to it. So does that mean it's wrong to celebrate Christmas? That's controversial. Some people are very strict and they say no, and I respect that if you don't want to. I have friends who refuse to celebrate it because they think it's paganistic. One person said to me, "Hey, you know what? If you married someone who used to be abused by their former partner, would you, and if that person came to you and said, hey, you know what, I want to celebrate your birthday today," and you tell them, well, today's not my birthday. So no, it's okay. I know today's not your birthday, but I want to celebrate it anyway. And I want to celebrate it by, it's actually the birthday of my ex who used to beat me, but I'm going to celebrate your birthday on this day. And I'm going to also do all my ex's favorite things on this day, but I'm celebrating you. How would you feel about that? Well, I wouldn't be happy about that. But their argument is that's what we're doing by if you were saved by Jesus, that means you were basically before that you were abused by the evil ones, and this is their holiday, and you wouldn't want to again you don't want to. Why would you celebrate the birth of Jesus on a date that was a birth of that's being celebrated for a paganistic God who you're supposed to have left, and you're doing all the pagan gods' favorite things and nothing that Jesus wanted. So I totally get it. But the reason that I will celebrate it not as the birth of Jesus, but as just a time to gather with family, because I
Right.
know that it's not his birthday. But I also, and again, I struggle with it. I'm going to be very transparent. I have my struggles with it, but I do it mostly for family and for the children. But I know that this is not when Jesus was born. And honestly, if you really want to get into brass tacks about it, there's paganism all over our world today that we deal with. If you pull out a dollar bill from your wallet, look on the back of it, it's loaded with pagan symbols, the pyramid,
Yes.
the all-seeing eye on top of it, everything about the back of the dollar, the eagle with a shield in front of it. All those things are from paganism and Freemasonry, yet we're not going to stop spending money, are we?
Mm,
So,
yeah, and I think intention is everything. Like,
yeah,
I mean, if you want to know what is important, study those. This is why I study the occult. And unfortunately, this has like been my tax, right? And
mhm,
I never wanted to do this, and it's weird. And God was like, "Oh, you're going to do this." And I'm like, "No." And so it just happened to be that way, and it is what it is. And I guess I'll be the Micaiah, right, of the Bible. That's how I feel most of the time. Nobody wants to hear that.
right.
But this is my taxing. So, but if you study things, what is important to like people that are quote unquote dark? We'll just say dark.
Yeah,
Intention every
mhm,
single time, every single time. So,
yeah, I agree.
yeah,
But if someone doesn't want to celebrate, I
yeah, it's okay.
respect.
Right.
Okay, so I want to talk about some of the other um, secular issues with Christian. We talked about the paganism, but you have secular issues, and we talked about Billy Carson, and but there's also a movie that came out several years ago that was called Zeitgeist, and in that movie, among other things, they were trying to discredit the Bible. As I said, there's a lot of noise out there right now of people trying to discredit the Bible, discredit Jesus, either his existence or his life. It's been out there for a long time, but it seems to be ramping up a lot now, and maybe as a counter move to I think what's going on in Christianity right now. There's a lot of turmoil there as well. And in Zeitgeist, it states that Jesus, the nativity story, his entire life is not original. That there are other so-called gods that were worshipped thousands of years ago who mirror the life of Jesus exactly. One of the one of the one of the examples I give is Horus, one of the gods of the Egyptian mythology. He was the son of Osiris and Isis. And in Zeitgeist, they'll tell you that that Horus was called the son of God because he was the son of the sun god, sun, sun god. So he was called the son of God. It says that he walked on water because when you see this, because he apparently died and ascended to the sun, and when the sun would be on water, they would call that walking on water. So Horus walked on water. It says Horus was born of a virgin, that he was immaculately conceived by his mother Isis, and that he died and rose again and ascended to the heavens, and that Horus was born on December 25th. So if you're not well versed in some of the differences between the two, that could really shock you. And like say, wait a minute, all these things, and there are other things to say about him as well. All these things sound like Jesus. They sound like what Jesus did: Son of God, walking on water, born of a virgin, dying and rising again. And there are actually other so-called dying and rising gods in other ancient religions, and it could cast doubt on whether on the veracity of the story of Jesus in the Bible. Was it really a copy? Then you have again Billy Carson with his Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which he claims in these tablets. And if you have, I don't recommend you get his book. If you want to read something about it, go ahead. If you want to study it for recreational reasons or just to be informed about it, these Emerald Tablets apparently also outline very vividly the life of Jesus. And according to Carson, these tablets were written 38,000 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So with that kind of information, it can make a Christian say, wow, should I doubt my faith? And that's what the movies like Zeitgeist want you to do. Here's the problem with that. Just because there are certain similarities between two narratives does not make them the same. It does not make them identical. It does not make Jesus Horus. And an example I like to give, an analogy, is if I would try to convince you, let's say I called you up, Heidi, and I said, hey, Heidi, you know what? I just got a new car. I got a Ferrari. How could I convince you it's a Ferrari? I'll describe it to you, Heidi, and you tell me if this description works for you. Well, you know how I know my car's a Ferrari? Because my car has four wheels. Would that convince you that's a Ferrari? No,
No.
because all cars have four wheels, right? Okay, well,
Right.
well, Heidi, my car has seats and a steering wheel. Would that convince you? Nope. All cars have seats and steering wheels. Well, my car has an accelerator and a brake and windshield wipers. That's why it's a Ferrari, right? No. I could go on and on telling you all the things that a Ferrari has in common with every other car, and it's not convincing. What if I said, well, Heidi, my car is a sports car? Well, that wouldn't convince you, but okay, that would at least make you get a little closer because not all cars are sports cars. I say, okay, well,
Right.
Heidi, my sports car was made in Italy. Oh, well, okay, getting closer. Oh, you know what? I also, my sports car that was made in Italy also has an emblem of a prancing horse on as its emblem. Okay, now a little more convincing, right? Why
Right.
was it convincing? Not because I told you things that were similar to other cars. It's because I told you things that are different.
Hmm.
It's the contrast that proves it. If you
Yes.
and I, if I were, I could describe you and I are not the same person. However, I could go through a litany of ways we're alike. We both live in the United States. We both live in the western half of the United States. We both have two arms and two legs. We were both, um, I'm going to assume, born in the last century. Sorry, I don't want to give away your age.
You're good.
We both speak English. We're both Americans. We both have a heart and lung. We both have ribs. We both have the same internal. I could tell you things about us that are common all day long. Does that mean we're the same person? No. Why? It's not what's similar about us. It's what's different. I'm a man. You're a woman. Okay. I live in California. You're in Utah?
Utah. Yep.
Utah. So it's the differences that make it that are really important. No one would look at us and say we're the same person, even though I could
Right.
list hundreds of things that are the same about us.
Right.
The
Yep.
distinction is the difference. And that's the same thing
Mhm.
with Jesus and Horus. Are there some vague similarities? Yes, there are. But not only are there very few of them, but some of them aren't even true. Like, for example, there's no record that Horus was born on. First of all, no one acknowledges that Horus was even real. Even the Egyptians know that he was an entity, a god. Jesus was a man. No one ever thinks that Horus walked the earth. Horus was not born on December 25th. There's no record that Horus was born of a virgin. It's not. No one has ever argued that his mother Isis was a virgin before he was born. That she never had intercourse with Osiris. And again, they aren't even they're supernatural entities. They're not human beings. He didn't die and rise again. His father Osiris was killed according to the legend, and he ascended to the sun. The sun was shown on the belly of Isis, and that's how he was conceived, which is the same story as Nimrod and Semiramis. That's not the same as the death and resurrection of Jesus. And then let's look at all the other differences, because there are hundreds of prophecies about Jesus in the Old Testament, and some of the ones that don't even have nothing to do with Horus. For example, the Bible says that Jesus will be born in Bethlehem. Horus wasn't born in Bethlehem. It said that he would be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. The Bible says that in the Old Testament. That's having nothing to do with Horus. His ministry will begin in Galilee, that he would be a Jew, that he would be despised by men, that he would bring an end to sin, that no bones were broken in his death, that he would die by being pierced in his hands and his feet, that he would be die among the poor, but be buried with the rich. So he died with the two thieves on the cross, but he was buried in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, who was a wealthy man. So there are tons and tons of things about Jesus have nothing to do with Horus.
Right.
So it's important that when people come with all these things, unless they're identical to everything that Jesus did, it doesn't matter if there are a few similarities here and there. So why would there be similarities between this? And I think we may have covered this the last time we talked, was because the word of God was not first written in our physical Bible. And people like the Billy Carsons of the world will come out and say, well, the Bible was only written, it was written in 1500 BC. That's when the books of the law was written, and it ended in the first century. However, there are other books that are much older, Sumerian texts and Egyptian texts, so forth and so on. So they're older than the Bible. So the Bible must have copied them. I will totally acquiesce to the idea that there were many religious texts that were written before the physical Bible, before Moses started dictating rather, or having God dictate to him the books of the law. But that's not the first word of God. The first word of God, the first revelation of God's will was in the stars. We see in Genesis chapter 1, he says he put the stars and the planets in the sky for times and seasons. In the Jewish mind, that those stars and seasons, the constellations, are called the Mazzaroth. You can look this up you can Google gospel in the stars, and you'll see this. God put his entire plan in the stars as a mnemonic and taught it to Adam. The new year, the Jewish New Year, starts in September, around the Virgo, the Virgin, which represents obviously the Virgin Mary, but also Eve as the the first mother. And then it goes through all the different constellations. It ends with Leo, the line of the tribe of Judah, the second coming. So the idea of original sin and Virgo all the way through the second coming is already in the stars. And everyone knew this. It was taught, God taught it to Adam, Adam taught it to his descendants. So that's when you get down. So when you get back to Babel and Nimrod, the reason that there are similarities is because Semiramis plagiarized the Mazzaroth, because everyone knew the story in the sky. But she said, hey, you know what? This story is about us. The sun god is Nimrod. I'm the virgin bride. I'm immaculate. I have immaculately conceived my son Tammuz. So we are what you see in the stars. And then when they confused the languages and everyone spread around the world and they took this religion with them, that's why you have all these different mother-child cults all over the world. We talked about this last time. That because they are plagiarizing the original word of God, the original display of God's will in the stars, in the Mazzaroth. The word Mazzaroth in Greek is Zoa, which is where we get the word zodiac. But Zoa means the way. The Mazzaroth means the way. Zoa means the way. The first Christians called themselves followers of the way. They didn't call themselves Christians. Christian was a pejorative that the Romans called them, because Christian means little Christ. So they would just tease them, oh, you got a bunch of little Christ. But that's not what they called themselves. They called themselves followers of the way, followers of the Mazzaroth. So when they were saying themselves, we are following the gospel that's been in the stars since the creation.
Right.
So there is no older version of that, unless Billy Carson and these other folks can show us that whatever book they're hawking, whatever tablets they're talking about are older than the stars. Then guess what? If there's plagiarism going on, it's your sources, not God's. And just for the record again, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth don't exist. There's no such thing. No one has ever seen them. Billy Carson,
they're like the Book of Mormon plates.
Exactly. No one's ever seen them. I think I've talked about on your show before that they were actually, for those who weren't listening to that episode, they were these emerald tablets were apparently discovered in the early part of last century, in the 20th century, by another con man named Maurice Doreal. That's not his real name. His real name is Claude Doggett. But he renamed himself Maurice Doreal because it sounded fancier. He claims he found these emerald tablets in the pyramids. I guess everyone else overlooked them. He somehow found them. Then he translated them, and then I guess he lost them, just like the Book of Mormon. You see, the gold plates are apparently
slippery.
If you make tablets out of precious metals, man, you better guard them, because you're gonna lose them. So the emerald tablets, they're not in any museum, and Wes Huff called him out on this during their debate. So how can you date something to 38,000 years old if they don't exist? Just one con man passing it on to another, and that's why Carson got destroyed, because he's a fraud and a sham, and his purpose, in his own words, he wants to destroy Christianity. And my understanding is that he was raised in a Christian cult. It might have been Jehovah's Witnesses or something like that. And he has mommy and daddy issues, and he's getting revenge on mommy and daddy by trying to destroy their beliefs. That's what he's all about. But enough about him.
He got destroyed. We know that much.
It was tragic, but it was so satisfying to see this guy just get his.
Yes.
And because he's been misleading so many people and making so many Christians doubt their faith by coming on and saying, I'm the foremost expert in all this in ancient Semitic languages and tablets and cylinders. Yeah, except
go
ahead.
All he did was do Crowley. Like, honestly, he just said, I'm God, you're God. Crowley said the same thing. Like, if you guys study the occult, like, you'll see that Al Kindi said the same thing, and he's super old, so it's nothing new under the sun.
No, it totally isn't. And he shows poor scholarship. He doesn't understand rudimentary Hebrew. He thinks that Elohim always means plural gods. See, so when it says in the beginning Elohim created the heavens and the earth, he's saying, well, the Bible tells you right there that multiple gods created the heavens and the earth. Problem is, Billy, if you even knew rudimentary Hebrew, you would know that Elohim can be singular depending on the context. And that God himself, when he says, I, the Lord your God, I am your Elohim and I am one. So he is context. And that's anyway, he's a fraud and he's been disproved. Fortunately, Christians will probably see that and won't doubt their faith anymore, but his followers will still
Hopefully.
follow him
Yes.
because they want it to be true. They want Christianity to be wrong.
Well, here's the thing. I
Yeah.
mean, same thing with Mormonism, same thing with most of these little branch offs where I am God, you are God, this table's God, the bug is God, the
Yeah.
trees are God. I mean, it sounds a lot better than serving, right? Because then
Right.
you, like you said, it's about pride. And those of us that, I mean, like my whole job is serving. So this wasn't a hard thing for me ever because I like it. You know, I'm a nurse. That's what I do. I'm a
Right.
mom. That's what I do. But like for some people, and especially I think men, they don't want to be a slave to anything. You know, they don't. They want to
Yeah.
be their free people, you know?
Yeah. People don't want to be accountable. That's the bottom line. And I think that's the whole reason that atheists are atheists because they don't want to be accountable to someone who's not themselves, even though they tacitly acknowledge. I don't believe there's any such thing as an atheist. I think they're just deniers because there are certain things that you know. If you believe in justice, which every atheist believes, they think that if you do good, the good things should happen. If you do bad, bad things should happen to you. Then you believe in God because God is right and just.
Yes.
And righteousness and justice have to exist outside of yourself. It cannot be you, even if you think you are God. Because if you were never born, righteousness and justice would still exist, meaning that it's not you, meaning that it's a principle outside of yourself. If you believe in
Yes.
beauty, then you didn't have to believe in a creator because beauty is our observation of symmetry. Okay,
Hmm.
something is beautiful because it's symmetrical.
Yeah.
Something is ugly if it's or unattractive if it's not symmetrical. That's how we judge,
Hmm.
our people. If someone's face is symmetrical, then they're beautiful. If there's something a little off, nose a little too big, eyes a little too wide, then they're
Right.
generally considered less attractive. So you cannot get beauty from chaos.
Yeah.
Beauty is order. Symmetry is
Yeah.
order. Order cannot come from chaos. That's impossible. That violates the second law of thermodynamics. So if beauty exists, then that means it's intentional. Order is intentional. You cannot get something orderly by accident. I dare you to try. I dare
Right.
you to take some paint and throw it at the wall and come up with a beautiful mural of trees and meadows and dogs and cats or whatever. You can't do it. Order does not come from chaos. Order is intentional. So if you see beauty, you acknowledge order. If you acknowledge order, you acknowledge intention. If you acknowledge intention, you have to acknowledge intelligence. And then if you acknowledge intelligence, then randomness cannot have created the beauty that you see. But as we just said, the problem is that they don't want to be accountable to anyone because if there is an intelligent creator, then that intelligent creator probably made you and this world for a reason.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
and if you don't want to be accountable to whatever that reason is, then you want to deny it. The problem is, and we talked a little bit about mental health earlier, and maybe we'll be back on with my friend John
Yeah.
Linhart. We'd have a great discussion
I
about
would
that.
love that. Absolutely.
The problem is that you can consciously lie to yourself, but your consciousness is only 10% of your brain. People say we only use 10% of our brain. No, we don't. We use 100% of our brain, but we're only consciously in control of 10% of it. The other 90% that controls our heartbeat, that controls our eye blinking, our internal organs, which designates our feelings and emotions and our motivations, 90% of it is our unconscious mind, and that unconscious mind sees reality. It's not
Yes.
moral. It doesn't know good or evil. It just knows what's real and what's not real. It sees patterns and it wants to help you consciously see those patterns, meaning that every atheist's mind knows that life cannot come from non-life. 90% of their brain knows that life cannot come from non-life. 90% of their brain knows that order cannot come from chaos. It knows reality and it's trying to get them to understand that. So it keeps poking at them saying, this is what's real. Now, consciously, you can lie to yourself. But your unconscious cannot lie. So what's happening is that there's a struggle between this 10% and the 90%. And that 90% is on them all the time saying, this is wrong. This is wrong. But they fight against it. And that's why they tend to be so angry. That's why they come on to Christian websites, which will make no sense if you're truly an atheist. Why would you waste any of your precious time arguing about a God you don't even think is real?
Right,
If
right.
you're an
Why not
atheist,
just move forward? Yeah.
right. If you're an atheist, then all you have is this world. So your most precious commodity is time. Why would you
Hmm.
waste any of it? I gave the analogy on Nephilim Death Squad because they go on these sites to argue with Christians because in their mind they believe, well, if I can defeat this Christian in an argument, then it'll settle me. It'll settle down my unconscious. It won't, because even if you do happen to, if you're, say you're more intelligent and you're a better debater than the Christian you're talking to, and you win the debate, you'll feel a little hit of dopamine for a few minutes and you'll feel good. But guess what? A few minutes later, you're going to have the same doubts and anger. Why? Because you're not fighting against Christians. You're fighting against your own unconscious mind, and it's
Hmm.
not going anywhere. You defeated that Christian who you never met, but guess what? The thing you're really in a fight with is still there, still poking at you, and you just wasted your time. I gave the analogy on Nephilim Death Squad. It's like if you get into an argument with someone and you want to assault them, and you pick up your diamond ring and throw it at them and hit them in the head and say, "Hey, look, I won." Yeah, you damaged them, but you just threw away something precious, your time,
Right.
and you still didn't win. So that's
So
why
true.
they're doing this, and it's really unfortunate. And I'm doing a series. I've just started my series on Genesis,
Oh,
and
awesome.
I've already been getting comments from atheists coming in. Oh, this isn't real. Your God is fake. Like, then why are you here? And you never have a
Yeah,
good answer.
well, and anyways, what are you doing on here bothering me? Like, what atheist is ever going to change a Christian's mind? Honestly, like, to be honest, like they're gonna, maybe they feel they win, maybe they're a better orator, maybe they have a lot of facts, but that Christian's still going to be like, that guy's crazy. Like,
Yeah, their
it's
minds
not
aren't
going to
going to
work.
change because again, they think
No.
that if they defeat a Christian, it's going to silence that itching in their mind, but it's not going to silence it because their fight is not against Christians; it's against their own mind.
Yes.
All right. We can move on to just one more thing I want to cover, and that is the Star of Bethlehem. What is that all about? The Star of Bethlehem and the wise men. So we all know the story that the wise men from the east, they saw the star, they came and worshipped Jesus. So who were these wise men, and what was the Star of Bethlehem? Well, first of all, another myth is that there were only three wise men. That's incorrect. Now they presented Jesus with three gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and they did it to acknowledge his priesthood, his kingship, and his eventual suffering. Because gold was, the gift that you would give a king. Frankincense is an herb, a resinous herb that you would give to a priest, and excuse me, myrrh was an embalming spice. So they were acknowledged. So these wise men from the east knew basically more about the career of Jesus, unfortunately, than many of the people in Israel who didn't recognize him and didn't understand his mission. So there were more than three of them. There was actually a contingent of them. These wise men were probably from the area of Persia. There was a rival empire to Rome at the time called the Parthian Empire, and Israel was a buffer state. Anything east of Israel was the Parthian Empire. So what we would consider modern day Jordan, Iraq, Iran, or Persia, and a few other areas around there. But that was part of the Parthian Empire. Rome was never able to conquer them. So Israel was kind of a border state. And when these wise men, and there was a contingent of them, they would not have come to enemy territory with just a few of them. It would have been like almost a military escort of these wise men. They're also called the Magi. They were just very learned men, and they were in the court of the king. It is assumed, and I think there's good veracity to this, that these are the spiritual descendants of the prophet Daniel. Because remember, the prophet Daniel he was elevated to basically prime minister under Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon in the ancient Babylonian Empire after he, through with God's help, was able to interpret Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And yeah, Daniel was at court, and of course, he never left. Daniel, he died in there. He died in Babylon and later Persia because they were conquered by the Persians. When Daniel was old, he would have been teaching the his spiritual descendants the same things that he knew. He was a Jew. He was an Israelite. He knew all the prophecies about Jesus. He would have been teaching it to them. So these magi would have been well aware of the prophecies about Jesus. And so they went to see him, and they took a military contingent with them because they were going into enemy territory. So when they come to Herod and they say to him, where is he who's born king of the Jews? Herod thinks this is a border incursion. And he's
Mhm.
thinking, oh man, these guys are invading us. What can I do? And that's why he kind of is a little meek. And note, by the way, that when they talk to Herod, they insult him. They say to him, "Where is he who was born king of the Jews?" Herod was not a Jew. Herod was an Idumean. He was an Edomite. The Jews, the Israelites, are the descendants of Jacob. Edomites are descendants of Jacob's brother Esau, who gave away his birthright, and Jacob cheated him out of his blessing. So they were enemies. However, they were conquered a few decades before the birth of Jesus, and so the Edomites were basically a part of the Jewish of Israel. They were vassals of the Jewish people. When Rome conquered Israel, and the Edomites were forced to nominally convert to Judaism. So when Rome conquered Israel, they assumed that the Edomites were just another segment of Jews, but they weren't as rebellious as the actual Jews. So when they had to put someone over the Jews as a king, they had an Idumean, Herod, because again the Edomites were a little less contentious, and the Romans couldn't tell the difference. So anyway, the wise men knew that Herod was not a Jew. So they said, "You were appointed king of the Jews." But we're asking, where's he who was born king of the Jews? So Herod is freaking out because this military contingent is there. They're saying he doesn't have a right claim to the land that he is apparently king over, but there's this baby born who is. So he's like, "Oh, I got a usurper. I've got a military invasion happening." So he says, "Yeah, go find him and go worship him. And when you find him, let me know where he is so I can come worship him." Well, no, Herod was going to go and kill him, which we find out later. So what is the star they were following? It's very interesting because if you look, there are some different opinions about it. Some people say that there, had to be some kind of supernova that happened at the time of Jesus, or some type of astrological movements. But with our current software, we can actually go back. We can, map the stars to go back in time to see if something like that happened. And there's very sparse evidence that there was anything astrologically significant happening. So what was the star? Well, there are two main theories that I hear. One is it has to do with the Mazzaroth and with certain signs there, and it's similar to the sign. There was a big deal made around between 2015 and 2017 about what they called the Revelation 12 sign in the stars. You may have heard of this. I think it got a lot of attention, where you had in Revelation 12, the Apostle John sees a vision of a woman clothed in the sun with 12 stars around her head, the moon under her feet, and a dragon, and a child. She's pregnant, and there's a dragon about to devour her child. Well, around 2017, you had the constellation Virgo in the sky, and around her head were the constellation with 12 other stars. And then you also had Jupiter, which is called the king planet, seemed to be in the belly of this constellation. And then you have the constellation Draco, looked like it was and the sun the sun was kind of behind this constellation, and the moon was at the bottom of it, and you had the constellation Draco, the dragon, looked like it was in a position to devour a child. So there was a big deal about this, that this meant something was going to happen. Well, nothing happened, as far as I can tell, but it was a big deal about it. And I tend to, and I again, I'm not going to, if people study this, that's great. I don't study the constellations like that, but I had a lot of doubts about it because just looking at it, it wasn't as clean as they said. This crown of 12 stars, it wasn't really a crown. It was just like 12 stars kind of scattered above the constellation. Jupiter being the king planet. Well, that's not in the Bible. The Bible never calls Jupiter or its equivalent a king planet. That's something that human beings made up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just didn't think it fit. But I was, I watched to see if anything was going to happen. As far as I could tell, nothing. Jesus didn't return in 2017. We all missed it.
Yes, right.
But anyway, the point is that there's an idea that maybe this same set of astrological signs were also in the heavens at that point, and the Magi saw it as a possibility, and it could have been because around the 7th BC, I believe that this happened again, although Jesus was most likely born at 4 BC. So be it. But even if you saw this sign, why would it point you to Bethlehem? Because it says specifically that they followed the star. They saw a sign in the east, and then once they got to Herod, after they got to Herod, they said they followed this star to to the barn, to the Bethlehem. Well, you can't do that with an astrological sign, because if you just move a few feet to the 50 feet east or west, then it's no longer over, even if you see a star there. But you have to understand that the term star does not necessarily mean the our astrological stars. Planets were called stars. Meteors were called stars. So star really meant something that was going to be shining. And no shining object in the celestial world is really going to lead you to a barn in Bethlehem. So the idea, and this is kind of what I tend to believe, is that this was the Shekinah. The Shekinah was, we first see it in the Exodus story when God is leading the Israelites into the promised land. It said he would lead them with a pillar of fire, a pillar of clouds by day and a pillar of fire by night. He would go, his spirit would go before them. And so this is another time where we have some type of supernatural light that is leading people. So it's very possible that the Holy Spirit was, appeared as the Shekinah, and would have appeared for the wise men, specifically for them, over the barn. And it would not have been something that everyone would have seen, because the rest of the people in Jerusalem area would have said, "Oh, well, look at that the Shekinah over there." So I think it was specifically for these wise men. I think that Jehovah God honored them by leading them there and using this specific light to lead them there. So I don't think it was an astrological star. Some people disagree with that, but I think it's tough to make that argument.
That
So
makes sense. Yeah, I think that makes sense because I mean, we know that miracles can happen, and
yeah,
I mean, they got there. Like, I
yeah,
mean, yeah, it's proof, some proof that like I don't think it would just be a random shooting star or just something
yeah,
in the air or a comet. Like,
yeah.
it's not
Yeah,
gonna
that was
happen.
another idea, that it was a comet, and that could make some sense if you saw, because comets have a tail, you could see them leading towards that. But again, if you look at when you wind back the clock, it doesn't appear, and if our dates are correct, it doesn't appear that there was any type of comet or anything like that happening at the time. Maybe there was a meteorite that came down or shone over it. That's a possibility, but I don't think it was what we consider a star today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is pretty much all I've got.
Awesome. Well, I know we've had like an interesting week. We kind of talked in the pre-show about this whole they're going to open St. Peter's Basilica, the Lucifer thing and the
Yes.
dragon and the seals. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Tell
what
me
in
tell me
the.
more about that, because I want to. I'm not as well versed to
So,
look it up, but
so it's very strange. So I saw this and it was fleeting and I thought this isn't real. You know what I mean? I really did not believe it, and they're marking it as the year of jubilees. So let me put this in that the Pope is going to open, they literally said, portals. And this is kind of very strange. It says the Catholic Church Jubilee year is marked by the opening of sacred portals or holy doors in the Vatican. The
wow.
2025 Jubilee year will begin December 24th, 2024, with the opening of the Holy Door on St. Peter's Basilica by Pope Francis. This Pope will also open a symbolic door in a Roman Catholic prison. And this is the first time they've ever done anything like this, ever. And so they said this tradition of opening the doors was like in 1300, and it's never been done for years and years and years and years and years. But this whole the seal is very strange. And the throne, I've been to St. Peter's Basilica. I don't know if you've seen it, how big it is, you know?
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, my wife and I, we were there in 2019. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very strange, you know, that they have that giant chair there and everything. And then they've
Mhm.
got all these like beneath these crypts. They're going to open up these crypts. Well, one of the names in the crypts is Lucifer. And on the seal, yeah, I know, my face too.
I must have missed it during my tour.
Woo! I know. I was like, what? Well, it's sealed off. And this
Okay.
is like the dead people underneath, I guess. There's like
Yeah.
these creepy underground things. But anyway, they said there's all these graves and then they've got this seal of the dragon over it. And I'm like,
Wow.
what on earth are they up to? Like this seems like a real bad plan with everything that's going on in the sky and everything
Yeah.
that's happening. It's got me a little concerned because that Pope Francis, he's not normal. That
No,
guy's
he's a Jesuit. I think he's
yeah.
the first Jesuit pope, and those guys are. You have to do your own research on that. But maybe excuse me, a
Ooh.
whole other show.
Yes, yes. He
It
is
was, yeah,
something. Yeah.
he is something. And 2025, man, I've been hearing, it's so interesting that for years, before I was doing any type of podcasts or even before I had my site, I've been hearing about the year 2025 as being critical for the
Mm,
bad guys. Elaine, I used to listen to a show called Radio Liberty with the late Dr. Stan Monteith, and he would have a guest on by the name of Dennis Cuddy. He was part of the Reagan administration in the Department of Education, and anyway, very smart guy. And he did a lot of research into the occult and Crowley and Blavatsky. And he said he would quote very often that, and this was in like the late 90s and in early 2000s. He would say that Blavatsky said that by the year 2025, the new world order would be
mm,
rapidly taking shape
hmm.
in 2025. And if you've listened to the work of Josh Peck on the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Essenes, apparently they're also saying that the Jubilee year starts in 2025, the final Jubilee. Well, I mean, the final Jubilee is a millennium, but I guess it's the last. Yeah, it's I think the last Jubilee starts in 2075, but yeah, oh no, the Jubilee is 50 years. So yeah, so 2025 to 2075 will be the last 50-year Jubilee, and then the 2075 would be the start of the millennial reign of Christ.
Mm. Well, they're doing some weird stuff. I'll tell you guys. I,
Yeah.
I was kind of concerned, especially knowing that they said they're going to leave this portal open. They're
Wow.
calling this portals. This is from Vatican News, you guys. I know I'm a conspiracy theorist, but this is like a real deal. And they're saying these portals, this is their words,
Mhm.
portals, sacred portals, and the five sacred portals will be opened until, again, January 6th. And then we've got Trump coming in. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And what is a Trump? Like a trumpet, possibly? I just was like, this is a little nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've not studied enough of it to be feeling confident to say, exactly what's happening here. I'm just giving out the information because it
Mhm.
is very concerning, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm going to start looking into it.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I know about the strange things around New Jersey. Um, and I think I may have heard something about the Vatican opening some stuff up, but I need to take a deeper dive into it.
Yeah, it's a weird one. And this is all, like I said, you guys, you can look this up. Like, this is Archdiocese, Vatican. This is not like a weird site. This is like real, real. And there's one that's a TikTok, and I know it sounds crazy, but he does a really good presentation of it. Maybe I'll just repost it to my story that day. But I just want to encourage the Christian people from that time frame, from December 24th to January 6th. Let's all just pray a lot more.
Hmm.
Because I think there's something going on. We need to
Yeah,
counterplay that action because, of course, what are they doing too? That's the whole Christmas like season,
right,
right?
right.
And
Yep.
so they're hijacking intention. That's my
Mhm.
guess. But I don't
Mhm.
even know. I don't know. Things are strange. We know, Bluebeam, I'm 100% on board with you with that. And, my mom is kind of afraid. Like she called me one day really upset and she said, I just don't want to miss the second coming because I thought it was a lie. And I'm like, I know, but I think we'll know. I think we'll have a
I,
clue, right?
I think we'll know. I don't think it's going to surprise us. I don't. I think there's a lot of precursors to that are going to be a little difficult to miss.
Right. And I just think we have to be more careful than ever. And I also feel like we need to not be worshiping a man, right?
Right.
Because
No,
yeah, I don't
men are
care
fallible.
politically, wherever you stand, that's whatever.
Mhm.
But like this whole back to worshiping money, I have no doubt he'll help the economy because
Yeah.
even more worship for him, but he's
Right.
doing some weird stuff with that Ark of the Covenant and all this business. I don't know what he's up
Yeah. I don't know
to.
if you've heard of the guy. What's his name? Cliff High.
Mm-hmm.
And those predictions that he had, and apparently his whatever technology he was using, said that there would be these aerial phenomena happening in early December. He
Oh
also
boy.
said that there's going to be a serious economic crisis in the beginning of 2025, but by the midpoint, like by summer, everything's going to be great, and we'll be entering a golden age.
Mm.
Now,
And
so
Trump is bringing back the World's Fairs. Do you know this?
I didn't. He's
So
been
he
wow. Oh my gosh.
he's
Yes.
he is going to do, and
Oh
every
my
time those
goodness.
happen, it's not good. You know
Right.
what I mean? They
Yeah.
they burn everything down. It's going to happen 2026 for the celebration of America,
Mhm.
right? And He's getting it all geared up. It's already lined out. All the cities are already lined out. Everything's already lined. When I seen that and knowing what I know about World's Fairs, I was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? It's going to be interesting.
We
I
are living
think.
in strange days.
Yes, sir. We definitely are. And I mean, the point is, right, we don't need to get lost in the sauce because I think those of us that are Christ centered will know, like you said,
Yeah.
hopefully, and we just need to stay close to God and not let everything be hijacked. Like be aware, but don't like
Right.
be freaked out, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know how else to
Stay
say
aware
that.
and just remember, like in the Revelation series, in the end, we know the good guys win, but we knew
Right.
that before then when things are going to get bad. I don't
Yep.
see things. I know that there are a lot of people who believe there's going to be one final revival of Christianity before the end, and if so, that's great. I don't see, I don't see it happening. I don't.
I feel like it'll be false, I
Yeah.
feel like it'll be
Mhm.
a false
There's going to
situation
be a great
back to
descent. Yeah.
Babylon. Yeah.
There will be a great, what's going to be, well, because I don't think that the Bible directly teaches there's going to be a great revival. I think that the Apostle Paul said in Second Thessalonians that there will be a great apostasy, a great falling away. The
Yes.
inference is that in order for there to be a great falling away, there'd have to be a great revival. I don't see those as necessarily happening. I don't think there needs to be a great revival to be a great falling away. I think the apostasy can still happen, and I think that apostasy is going to be could be Project Bluebeam.
Could be. I really think, I mean, look, there was a pause in Trump's presidency on purpose. These things don't happen on accident. They didn't,
No, no, they don't.
these billionaires study the stars. Actually, they say that,
They do.
so,
They
and,
they
and
they work they worship the fallen Elohim, the fallen angels, and
yes,
that's
they
where they get
do.
their marching orders.
Yes, they do. And the Mormons will gladly admit to you that their God is named Elohim. And
Mhm.
so there is no doubt in my mind that this is going on and that they are communicating with these things, just like in the congressional hearings that they've said mentally they communicate with these things. And I think they do it using people's intention. I think that's why these rituals, like,
Mhm.
why would you bother? Why would you
Right.
do all the weird stuff? It's a waste of time otherwise. So they don't waste their time. These
No.
people are deliberate, very deliberate. So,
Yeah.
with that, we will remember where Christ is in our hearts. And if you choose to celebrate Christmas or not, like that's up to you. But,
Right.
just keep your intention clear. I think that's the
Exactly.
most important part. Yeah. We can make it a celebration of Jesus just like they made it the opposite, right?
Right.
Like we can hijack their stuff like they hijacked ours. That's where I'm going
There
with
we
it.
go.
But yeah, well, let me have you tell one more time about where to find you and what you're a little bit about for our listeners that didn't catch our last show.
Sure. So, what I'm all about is helping Christians understand their faith, why their faith makes sense. And I am a logical thinker. I'm a systems thinker. I break everything down into its minutia. And again, that's my passion is helping Christians understand. So I'm the anti Billy Carson. So my goal is to help build your faith, while his goal is to tear it down. Of course he failed because he
Yes.
doesn't have truth on his side. But the best place to find me is my website, faithbyreason.net, not .com. That's a different website, faithbyreason.net. There you have like over 10 years of the work that I've been doing, blogs, podcasts, videos. My videos are there. They are also linked to my YouTube channel. If you want to go straight to YouTube, add Faith by Reason 883 or something like that, or you can just search for it. My entire Revelation series is up on YouTube
Yes.
and on my website, all 60 episodes. And I've just begun a series on Genesis. I have my first 2 episodes up. I'll have the 3rd episode up this week. And yeah, there are a few other short videos here and there on X. So yeah, that's really
I know what I'll be doing with my Christmas holiday. So I really like your work and I really think it's important. And I just encourage everyone to go not only check out his work, but share his work so that it
Yes,
can get
please.
out there because
Yeah.
it's the time. It needs
Yeah.
to happen right now.
Yeah.
So
The best thing we
I
do
really
to
feel
support
that.
me is to share.
Yes.
Hit that share button.
Absolutely. And I thank you again for coming on my show. Everybody, once again, check him out. And thanks for being here.